Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to take this moment to welcome you to the presentation on intelligent test automation, handling continuous automation needs of Oracle Cloud applications. Leading the webinar today is Lavanya Salagandala. She's the head of test engineering here at Suneratech. I'd like to ask if you please feel free to ask questions, any questions you may have during the presentation in the Q&A area of the webinar, and we'll address those during the Q&A portion of the discussion. Thank you again for joining, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lavanya. Lavanya, it's all yours.
Thanks, Art. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. As Art mentioned, this is Lavanya Salagundla. I head our test engineering practice on CloudTestr platform. And today, we wanted to talk about how customers who have migrated to cloud applications are handling automation testing, specifically Oracle Cloud customers, how they are dealing with the quarterly patches that they get. That enables them to undertake the new fixes that are coming in, enhancements that are coming in, and any new features that they keep pushing in a continuous delivery model. Right, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the options that the customers have today, and we'll look into a customer case study on how a particular customer has handled this, and we'll also quickly talk about a platform that can enable this for you. So let's talk about the continuous delivery model that Oracle Cloud applications provide. And with that, what are the benefits and new responsibilities that customers are able to undertake? Because moving to cloud has been a huge paradigm shift for a lot of users. There are new responsibilities that come with that, along with the benefits that you start reaping while moving to cloud. So when we start with the benefits, obviously moving to cloud enables you with having the ability to continuously innovate, because the cloud provider is now providing you continuous delivery, continuous innovation at much faster pace than what they used to on-prem systems. It's also provides you a predictable timeline and schedule. Now that the system is being pushed by, the changes are being pushed by the cloud provider, they also provide you a predictable timeline as to when the changes are coming in, and how long do you have to make sure that those changes are able to work in your environment, and all that is kind of predictable, so you can plan for it. And then in terms of business value, previously, because these are more backend systems, you used to put off a lot of these new innovative functionality that is coming in, whether it's mobile or whether it's chatbots and other things. You used to put those off for years to come. But with the focus being now shifted to provide these functionality by the cloud provider, you can provide a lot more business value to your employees and your users with migrating to cloud. You can also get these new features and modules much faster, because most of these are continuously being delivered. You're able to get these features much faster instead of waiting for months and years together to get what you're looking for. And last but not the least, cloud is definitely a stepping stone for your larger digital transformation and innovation in your organization and applications. So this is going to be a first step for you to be able to take that journey. So a lot of benefits of moving to cloud. But with these benefits, you also get you have to undertake new responsibilities. Planning for it during implementation is great, but if you have already gone in, then you need to probably take a look at, how do you make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck of moving to cloud, right? So one is keeping up with the change of pace has been a challenge for a lot of customers in terms of taking that in. If you don't plan for it, then changes are coming in so fast and furious. You need to be in a position to handle those changes, right? Because of the frequent releases that are coming in. Evaluating what is new and planning for adoption is another new responsibility that you have to take in, because new innovative features are getting pushed every quarter. Though they are not mandatory to take in, if you keep opting them out as you move along your patches, then at some point in time it'll become like your on-prem systems, where you keep putting off new changes that are coming in until they become mandatory, and you're not really reaping the benefits of the cloud, right? And maintaining the continuity of the application, considering that you're getting changes so frequently, making sure that these changes are not impacting not only the cloud applications but also your upstream downstream systems that are interacting with your cloud applications is important as well. And continuously doing regression testing to make sure that everything is working as they should work. There are no security breakdowns in terms of changes that are getting pushed. All your processes are running as expected. All these are something that you need to account for every quarter if you're getting these releases such frequently. So these are some of the new responsibilities that you would need to plan for. Out of these, the reason it becomes much more important for you to plan for this is the change management process, right? Because it's a huge paradigm shift, especially in the change management process from on-prem to cloud. Because when you are on on-prem systems, it's all your applications, it's your infrastructure. You decide when the release is happening, you decide what goes into a particular release and all. So you had a lot of control when you were on prem, but you're kind of handing over that control to your cloud provider when you move to cloud, right? So basically it's their infrastructure, it's their release cycles. They decide the schedule, they decide what goes into a particular release, and all that is being controlled by them, and you pretty much are just a recipient of whatever they are providing to you, right? So you cannot really control a lot. So that's a pretty big change that needs to be planned for. One is a lack of control. The second one is adopting these changes faster and frequent changes that are coming in. How do you make sure that those changes that are coming in are not impacting your applications, right? How much testing do you need to do? What kind of testing do you need to do? Do you need to test everything? Do you need to just test the changes that are coming in? Do you need to test just the application, the cloud application, or do you need to test the integrations? So a lot of these things that need to be planned for, to make sure that your once the release goes into production, you're not running into issues, right? Because keep in mind, there is no backward compatibility as such, and there are no rollback options, right? Because the cloud provider is not pushing these changes just to your organization. They're changing it to tens of thousands of customers at the same time, right? So you cannot just go back and say, hey, oh, it's not working for me, just move it back or roll it back and all, right? So that's a very tedious process for you to request and get that approved, and then make it happen, right? So the best course of action is to actually plan for it. Make sure that, considering that the schedule, considering things are coming in, the release notes are released, making sure that understanding how it impacts your releases, what needs to be tested, and making sure you have team available to do the testing, and as much as possible try to automate it, so that you kind of have the ability to do more testing with the less amount of time that you get, right? So this is one of the important areas to plan for, considering the lack of control in the change management process, to avoid any unplanned surprises. Because if it was your systems where you have complete control, if something goes into production, you can, and it's not working as planned, you can just roll back, or plan or put in a new patch immediately and things like that. But since it's not that, as long as things are working fine, it's great. The day things are not, then you kind of run into an issue of how do you deal with it for the next 3 months until the next patch is coming in, right? So these are some of the things that you need to think about from a change management standpoint. So what are the options available for you, right? So one is obviously doing the testing manually, which is kind of time consuming process, and the coverage might not be comprehensive, because usually for Oracle Cloud customers, they get 2 weeks to do the testing, getting the fixes resolved, retesting, and whatnot. Which means if you want to do comprehensive testing, you need to put a lot of people on it if you want to do a complete regression testing. Most of the time, we have noticed customers just look at the impacted changes and then just do the impacted testing and maybe a little bit of sanity testing and then hope and pray that everything looks fine. Right, so that's a risk you take if you're just doing it manually. Either you put a lot of people on it, or you take the risk of having things leak into production and then live with it for the next 3 months. And other thing that you need to think about when you're doing it manually is, since your focus is so much on making sure that the mandatory changes are working, you will not focus on the new feature adoption and new changes that are coming in to see how it would benefit your organization. So you're kind of putting the new changes at the back burn just to make sure that your systems are running as they should when you're getting these patches. So that's manual testing that the things that you need to consider if you want to continue doing manual testing. So let's say you want to go into the automation space. So looking at building your own automation platform is one option. When you're looking at this option, you need to look at what are the tools that work really well for cloud applications. Are they open source licenses, licensed products and all? So there are options like Selenium that is open source, and there are other licensed products that do work on cloud applications. Then you need to look at the resources with the skill set that can leverage these tools to build the framework around it, to make sure that they build the assets that can be leveraged to do automation and all. It might take you about 3 to 6 months to get the automation up and running, and do the ongoing continuous maintenance. So when you're looking at this particular option, one thing that you need to particularly look at with these tools, when you're evaluating these tools and when you're looking at doing it in-house, is the maintenance part of it. Right, so you want to make sure that, keep in mind, automating it is going to be easy. A lot of the tools available are going to have the ability to automate it, the cloud applications. But then when it comes to maintenance, keep in mind you only get the 2-week window where you need to update the automated scripts based on the changes that have been impacted, and then execute them within that time window, and make sure that you have enough time to get the defects identified, get it fixed, retest and all. So that is where we've noticed a lot of customers running into challenges, because the time that your automation engineer is actually getting to know what is getting impacted of the automated test is when the test pod is updated, and then when they actually see it and then run the test once to see what is breaking, and then maintaining it at that point is becoming a challenge. Right, cloud applications are a little bit finicky in terms of dynamic ID changes and all. So if the maintenance percentage is much higher than your other applications, and that poses a challenge. So that's something you want to keep in mind when you are evaluating automation tools for building it on your own. The other thing is, you'll need to make sure that you have the resources who are skilled in this particular tool and frameworks available with you through the every time there is a quarterly patch coming in. That continuity and making sure that they're available to maintain and execute these tests would be important as well. Right? Otherwise, you can invest in it and then it becomes shelfware because nobody's updating them in a timely manner, and you fall back into option number one of doing it manually. Right. So the third option is you can subscribe to automated testing as a service options with service providers, where you're handing it over to somebody else. No worry about license costs, no worry about hardware software costs, no resource costs. You're just paying for your subscription of the service. Every quarter comes in, they need to take care of running the automated tests, making sure that defects are found and retesting and all that, right? So you're kind of handing over that responsibility as a subscription service, so that you can focus more on new features that are coming in, making sure that you can take care of your own business as it's coming along, because nothing stops while these things are coming in and you're having to focus on doing the testing and all, right? So those are the three different options that you have available, that you can look at implementing, so that you can actually take advantage of the move to the cloud. So I want to talk quickly about a customer case study of a customer who went from on-prem to cloud, implemented cloud. This is a customer who implemented Oracle HCM Cloud across 5 different countries and legislations, and they have done this in 2 different phases. Phase 1 with core HR benefits compensation, and phase 2 with payroll, time and labor, absences, and performance. So this customer planned to do automation while they were doing the implementation. So by the time implementation was completed, they had automation up and running for phase 1. That enabled them to focus more on phase 2 implementation, instead of focusing on the phase 1 monthly, quarterly patches testing. So that enabled them to have their personal focus on what was important at that point in time. Same thing with phase 2. They had automation up and running by the time phase 2 went live. So they were able to, by the time both phase 1, phase 2 were live, they had a pretty comprehensive list of automated test suite available across all the legislations where they have implemented these modules. And since then, all quarterly patches are being tested through automation, and the business users just validate the results and sign off, and focus on looking at what are the new features that are coming in and whatnot. And this is one of the customers who actually adopts new features much faster than others. Like, for example, the Oracle HCM Cloud newsfeed UI that came in, this customer adopted it last year, instead of waiting till when it's become now mandatory for 20B release. Right. So those are some of the things that this customer has done. And in terms of the quarterly patch lifecycle, so how this customer is working through that now with the automation in place is, the step 1 is they get a complete impact analysis report, that instead of going and reading the release notes, they actually get a report that shows what are the changes coming in, how does it impact their implementation, and what are the tests that need to be updated and executed, and all that. Everything is a comprehensive report is provided that enables them to at least understand what are the fixes coming in, what are the changes coming in, and how does it impact their implementation. Then once the pod is updated, getting the test cases maintained and executed through automation testing is done. And since automation testing is in place, this customer is not just doing impacted test cases testing, but a complete regression suite is executed to make sure that there are no issues getting leaked into production from a coverage standpoint. And also they also get auto health checks. That means that not just functionality is being tested, but also making sure that there are no security breakdowns, or there are no process slowdowns that are happening when a patch gets applied, so that these are important aspects as well. You don't want employees getting access to admin screens and things like that, right? So we want to make sure that there are no security breakdowns as new patches are getting applied. And then any fixes that are coming in, retesting it and getting signed off, right? So that's kind of a simple, straightforward process that happens for a quarterly patch life cycle. So much so that testing is pretty much a non-event for this customer. When a quarterly patches are coming in, they focus more on the new features coming in and what to do with them, when to adopt and things like that, versus worrying about testing. right? So that's kind of a life cycle that every quarterly patch takes in for a customer. And in terms of benefits that this customer has realized from an automation standpoint, one is obviously from a coverage. Like I said, we are not picking and choosing what to test, but doing a complete regression coverage to make sure it's a defect-free release when it goes into production. Keep in mind, since you don't have control once it goes into production, we don't want things getting leaked and having to live with it for a while, right? So having better coverage would minimize those kind of issues. And also in terms of new feature adoption, this customer is able to speed up the new feature adoption, provide these to the business and employees much faster. In terms of cost, there's a 55% reduction in cost of quality because they've subscribed to an automated service and focuses just to do that every quarter. And that way they are minimizing the amount of money they're spending on testing manually by at least 55%. And last but not the least, with automation in place, they're able to complete their quarterly patch release testing under 5 days of the pod getting updated. That leaves enough time to work with Oracle or with their service providers to fix any issues and do the retesting and close it out. So it gives plenty of time and plenty of peace of mind that you don't have to do the testing till the day before it goes into production and find issues, right? So those are some of the tangible benefits that are being realized. Apart from that, there are non-tangible benefits like freeing up the key personnel to shift focus on business critical tasks versus doing testing, which doesn't really add any value for business. And also continuously delivering new features without any compromising of the quality or user experience as well, right? So these are some of the benefits that automation is able to provide for this particular customer. So I wanted to take some time to now talk about what this customer has been using. This customer has subscribed to an automated release validation platform for cloud applications called CloudTestr. And this is CloudTestr is an enterprise platform that is being leveraged by a lot of Oracle Cloud customers, irrespective of what applications or modules that they have implemented, whether it's HCM applications, ERP, PM, SEM, all kinds of applications it supports. Since it's an enterprise platform, it also supports all different types of SaaS applications. It doesn't have to be Oracle. It could be Salesforce, SuccessFactors, Workday, Oracle NetSuite, any other SaaS applications that you could have, as well as on-prem applications and any custom applications. And most important thing is the integrations, right? So this way you're able to do complete end-to-end testing, not just the functionality of individual test cases as well. It is provided as a service, and so that customers will get access to the platform where they can log in, look at the dashboards, download the results, download the documentation and all that. But still, most of the heavy lifting in terms of automating, maintaining, and executing is done by the CloudTestr team. So that way, getting best of both worlds, you still have access to the platform to log in and look at things that are important to you, which are the test results and the metrics and stuff. And you don't have to learn another tool to be able to do automation. And it is a scriptless platform that enables us to automate much faster because we don't write any code. The platform generates the code, and that accelerates the automation quite significantly. So we are able to automate, bring customers on board with automation within 4 to 6 weeks of engaging, and we can test the quarterly patch testing under 5 business days of pod getting updated. Right, it is hosted on the cloud. It's hosted same place as Oracle Cloud is hosted. We are open to hosting on-prem as well, but most of the cloud customers prefer it on the cloud. It supports all different types of testing, whether it's functional regression testing or integrations testing or end-to-end testing, where you are actually testing the whole complete flow, like hiring an employee, making changes, terminating the employee, rehiring the same employee, so you can actually see a complete end-to-end data flow as well. It also tracks the process slowdowns, so we can track the performance of a particular transaction to see if there is any degradation in that process, and notify to take appropriate action. And last but not the least, making sure that there are no security breakdowns through role-based security testing is also being done, so that it's not just functionality, but even the non-functional aspects of it are taken care of. So I'm going to do a quick demo of the platform, so you can get an idea. So this is a login screen of the platform. Whenever we onboard a customer, we kind of provide them their own access. We set them up with the applications that they have in place so that you can see your specific applications in the dashboard. So this is a dashboard view where you are able to actually see the details of what are the test cases that are planned to be automated, what have been automated, what are in the sign-off phase, what are still in progress, and things like that. You can also drill down into more details if you want to see the details specific to a particular product or module. You can take a look at that, see what is in progress, what's completed, and things like that. Right, and for the completed test cases, you can actually download all the test documentation from here. You can see the same thing for execution and defects as well, so you can drill down into the stats at any point in time. Same thing with the test execution. You can take a look at what number of test cases are planned to be executed, how many were executed, how many passed, how many failed, how many are yet to execute. All that stats, you can just log in and get that information. You can also filter by releases, so that you can actually see the results specific to a particular release. What happened if you want to go back and look at the previous release details. If something was not working this release, you can go back to see if it was working previously as well, because you have pretty detailed results with screenshots. You can have the defect stats as well. You can take a look at the defect by status or severity as well right here at the dashboard. I'll pull up a quick test case to show how it actually looks. So this is a quick HCM test case, hire an employee. And if you look at it here, when we are automating it, we are actually automating it for a customer specific implementation. So we are going to understand what is the implementation that a customer has done, what kind of configurations that they've done, what kind of personalization that they've done, so that when we are automating it for your implementation, and if anything gets impacted when a patch gets applied, we are able to identify that as a defect. And while we are onboarding you with these test cases, we are able to capture the screens as part of the initial onboarding process, so that it helps us in multiple ways. One, when we are auto generating the documentation, we can actually generate the documentation in a much more detailed fashion, where you can actually see the screens and the steps instead of how you probably are now documenting your manual test cases with just steps that are there. So this way you can actually have steps and screens, and this is always maintained when changes are coming in. So tomorrow, if this particular hire an employee process changed in a particular patch, then as part of the maintenance of the automated test, the documentation gets updated as well. So next time you download the documentation, it has the most recent test documentation available. Right. And the other benefit for capturing the screens is from a result standpoint, you get a pretty detailed results, including the steps and the screenshots associated with it. And you can download the same thing by logging into the platform at any point in time, since you have access to the platform. Right. So if you look at it, the execution results, you have the test case name, how long it took to execute, when we executed it, where we executed it, which browser we used to execute, if there are any failed steps that are upfront called out, and steps in details, and then you have your screenshots. right? So even if your business users are not executing the test, they feel very comfortable looking at the screens to make sure that everything is looking as it should, and feel comfortable signing off on a release, right? So that's test documentation, results documentation. And we also do automated data management to make sure the data that we are using is we plan for the data, whether it's static data, dynamic data, so that during onboarding process itself, we know where the data is coming from. If it's dynamic data, then we fetch it and then use that as input into the test cases and whatnot. So this way we are kind of minimizing any data related issues while execution is happening. We can also iterate through test cases with for multiple data sets. So for example, if you're hiring different types of employees, then you can have the same automated test, but we can execute with different sets of data with different types of hires, to make sure that everything is working fine. So this way you can actually do more data driven testing, and we can optimize the amount of automation that you'll need to do as well, right? So let me just quickly show the execution of this test that I was just showing you on how it actually looks executing. So this is the test, the hire an employee test that has gotten triggered now. So we're going to execute these tests. And this test can be executed in parallel and unmonitored. So we can just trigger a test set and let it execute. If we have to execute multiple things, we can do it in parallel. We can do it on multiple VMs. So that enables us to speed up the process of getting automation completed within a stipulated time as well, right? So like you said, we can actually do end-to-end testing as well, instead of just testing individual test cases. That also can be done, but we can string the individual test cases together. I'll show you once this is done in a test set for dependency test cases, and make sure that we can actually run an end-to-end test without any manual intervention as well. So once these tests are executed, the results get posted on the platform, and you can, like I said, see these details in real time by logging into the platform at any point in time, right? So this just completed the test, and if you go back, you can see the results of the test being passed, and the details of that as well, right? So let me go back and take a look at the test set functionality that we talked about. So this is a test set functionality where you can actually create a test set with the dependencies, where I can just group the test cases that need to be executed in sequence, and test cases that can be executed in parallel, so that you're creating a dependency. So when I'm actually executing this test set, I don't have to worry about monitoring this, right? So I know that these three test cases now have dependency and they work in sequence, and these two test cases can run in parallel, right? So that way, as part of the strategy, we can actually create these end-to-end flows and execute them as needed. We can also do integrations testing, which is obviously a very important aspect to make sure that you're not just testing the application, but you're also testing integrations. So you have different types of integrations you can create, if it's SQL based or if it's API based. You could just create those integrations and then execute these integrations as well as part of your testing, right? If you also have a lot of features like more detail level, release level metrics, pass percentage, fail percentage, and things like that, that you can take a look at it. You can also schedule tests from CloudTestr, or you can also run it through your continuous integration process. You can call the test through an API to trigger it that way as well. If you're a payroll customer, we also have payroll data validation self-service tool that can enable, with a click of a button, payroll data validation. This is outside of your functional testing, but this is more validating your payroll data before and after a release. So whether it's a payroll register or payroll activity report, you could just run the test before, run the report before the patch, store that information, and then run it after, and then upload both of them here, before and after. And then you can also do any variances if you're okay with some level of tolerances in terms of standard earnings is okay if it's out by 0.01% or whatnot. So you can set tolerances so that it doesn't get picked up when the report is run. And then you just click a button. So this is more of, if you don't want any data stored, just say no. So this is, nothing gets stored in the platform, it just gets processed in our time, and then you have the information about the variances at summary level, at component level, at um, employee level and whatnot, right? So for payroll customers, this has been pretty valuable from a data validation standpoint, where you are able to just with a click of a button validate your data pre and post patch, so that you can go into the release with confidence that the payroll files look good and there are no variances that you anticipate once the patch gets applied, right? So that's kind of the uh, demo of the platform. And let me just quickly sum it up on customers that use CloudTestr and why they use it. One is the only platform that has been certified by Oracle for Oracle Cloud applications, provided as subscription consumption based service. So you're not paying for tools or licenses or anything like that. You're just paying for what you're consuming. And we have a lot of pre-built test libraries. We're also Oracle's release validation partner that enables us to see things much ahead of the customer seeing it. That enables us to keep our test library up to date on the changes that are coming in. We talked about automated data management, so that we are not coming back every time when testing needs to be done for quarterly patches, requesting for data. It's all planned for in the initial onboarding process. We can onboard a customer in 4 to 6 weeks with automation, and we can execute these tests within 5 business days of the pod getting updated. We'll also take care of data security of the PII data. We have multiple options that we can work with you to ensure that we don't have access to any of the PII data when we're doing testing. We also provide automated change management. So we provide an impact analysis report. You don't have to go through release notes and figure out what is changing. We do that, and we provide the impact analysis report for you. We do auto health checks, performance monitoring. We auto generate the documentation, so your documentation is never going to go stale. Some of our customers even use this documentation for training purposes because it's very detailed. So any new person joins, they could just hand over that documentation and they're able to understand how the flow works. You have access to the platform where you can log in, download the results files at any point in time, download the documentation, look at the metrics and dashboards and all. It supports integrations, and also it supports audits, both internal and external audits, where we are able to help customers go through the audit process more seamlessly, because everything that an auditor is looking for is already on the platform in terms of what changed, what has been tested, the screenshots, and all that. Right. So that's a quick snapshot of why this platform. And I will open it up for questions now. If there are any particular questions on the automation options available today, or on CloudTestr, or on Oracle Cloud applications, or migrating to cloud, any questions you might have, please you can ask in the Q&A section.
So Lavanya, I want to jump in real quick. There's a couple questions out there right now. So we can jump into those. So the first one is, where is CloudTestr hosted? And does it work with on-prem applications?
Yes, that's a good question. So, CloudTestr can be hosted on the cloud or on-prem. By default, we host it on the cloud. It's hosted on Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and we can support from the cloud for on-prem applications as well. All we need is access to the system through VPN, and we should be able to automate your on-prem systems as well.
Okay. The next question is around safeguarding data. So, it's how do you safeguard data, the test data? Is it taken out of our premises, as it says?
No. So if it is the cloud applications, we there are two options. One is you can actually log in SR with your cloud provider to do data masking. That way, the test pods don't have any sensitive data. If you don't want to do that, we can actually provide you the step-by-step process to take that would scramble the data in the test environment, so that when we are accessing the environment, we never see the sensitive data. Right. So there are multiple ways we work with customer to ensure that we don't see any sensitive data, and we use as much as dummy data or test data possible. And if that cannot be avoided, then we look at how do we scramble the data. So we'll work with you to make sure that the data security is taken care of.
Okay. The next question is around the test libraries. It says, how many pre-built test libraries are available from Oracle HCM in particular?
For HCM, I think we've got almost, I would say about 1200 to 1400 pre-built scenarios that we already have. But again, these are across all the modules. These are more vanilla scenarios. But when we work with customers, we actually understand how they have implemented it and automate it for their implementation. We don't just use the plain basic scenarios that are there. But that gives us a step forward in terms of getting automation, reviews and scoping and all quicker. And coverage standpoint, we can actually guide the customers in terms of what needs to be tested, what other customers are testing, what needs to be focused, and things like that.
Okay, great. Last question that's out there right now is, does the platform support continuous integrations? And if yes, which tools?
It does support continuous integrations. It's not tool specific. We'll expose an API so that whichever continuous integration tool that you're using can call that API and trigger the executions. So it could be any of the tools that are in the market today. That we can, Jenkins or Bamboo or TeamCity or anything. We should be able to enable the API that you can use to trigger the call.
Okay. You kind of touched on this already, but there's another question about dealing with customer data. How do we deal with the customer data that's in the system?
Like I said, so in the test pod, before we get access, the sensitive data can be masked or scrambled, and that way we are not looking at the customer sensitive data.
Okay. And I think the next question is in that as well. This is from Satish. I'm not quite sure if I understand it. It says, is there any mocking that can be implemented? I'm assuming that mocking or masking of data, which you basically just kind of covered.
Yeah, so that's what I talked about, the scrambling of data, or we can generate that data depending on the fields, right? Like for example, social security numbers, or things that are date of birth or things like that we can actually generate and use that to scramble the data, and then get that uploaded into the customer environment, so that when we are seeing it, we are not seeing the actual data, actual PI data.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the folks who are on the call? That was the last one in the Q&A section, Alanya.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining. We will make this recording and presentation available. If there are any further questions, you could reach out to us at cloudtestr@suneratech.com or info@suneratech.com. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending.